Now, say my name.
The Rolling Bad Podcast.
You're goddamn right.
Welcome to the Rolling Bad Podcast, episode number 22, coming to you from the desolate wasteland of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're recording on April 3rd, and I'm your host, Elric Edge. With me tonight are
Bill Costello
and James Tapia.
Tonight's episode, we're going to do our usual stuff where we talk about what's coming out, what we've been up to, painting, gaming, etc. We also got some great interviews lined up with Paul Murphy from the Forge the Narrative podcast. It's a 40K podcast, but we definitely wanted to talk to him because of that. If you have not checked it out, definitely check it out. It's a fantastic show. We also have an interview with David Griffin, who is running the Age of Sigmar event, the GT, I should say, at NashCON this year on June 3rd and 4th. So listen to those interviews. Good stuff.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Let's do a show.
Okay, let's do it. The Realm of the New Dawn, where we're going to talk about the new stuff that's come out from GW. And even though it's a White Dwarf weekend, there really isn't a whole lot of new stuff, unless you count the cool Citadel knife, saw, and tweezers, which I must say are
sweet.
I don't think I've ever made cuts as accurately as I did this weekend with that new razor blade.
Is it that amazing?
$33. No, it's an Exacto number 11. And it's a $33 Exacto number 11.
Yeah,
so,
wow.
But it feels good in the hand. It's well balanced. Okay, I can't keep going. Yeah, it's not the repair tool. I will say the saw is kind of cool. You know, it's nice to have a little handheld saw rather than some of those, regular other hobby saws that I have. The tweezers are, luckily they were only $12.50.
Jeez.
But yeah, they're okay. I mean,
they get the job done.
And that's the whole thing is if you're into the branded tools, you'll love them. So other than that, this White Dwarf, I mean, obviously it has the Caradron Overlords in it, and it has the Armageddon game, the 40K, the Necromunda new game. So it's really packed with that stuff. But I didn't find this issue to be as knocked out of the park as some. The paint splatters, again, pretty cool. But I hate to say, it's as good as all the other ones. It's not like each issue before this was like, wow, that much better than the one before. And this one's just as good. So, I don't know. But it's got the Caradron Overlord.
Is it that basically everything in here was shown at Adepticon, and then they're like, here's a White Dwarf?
No,
2 weeks later that
they talk about the corn, the new corn book in there, and they give a little bit more info. And, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, except that, yeah, we have heard about everything that's in there already. I think one of the things in there's a game you play with a deck of cards that's just kind of silly, I think. But it's a good, the paint splatter's good stuff, and the previews of the Caradron and stuff are very nice. It's going to whet your appetite pretty good for what's coming up. But other than that, there's really not a lot of new stuff. Most everything in there is already announced. There's nothing groundbreaking. It's kind of hard to do it in a month when you're at Adepticon and releasing all kinds of great news to the hobby in general. So, other new Dawn items. Tyler Mengel released on the Adepticon weekend, released his Tomb Kings Battle Tome.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten that from TGA or from Tyler Mengel's site yet, I mean, literally run, don't walk, and download that thing. When you download it and start going through it, you will literally think you are looking at a GW product. The quality is just so out there. Have you looked at it, James?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should.
Well, now that Ulrich told me we're going to use it for tournaments here, since I am a tournament player,
yeah.
I'll look at it.
It is, you'll look at it and you'll literally think that it was a product that came out from GW. You cannot tell with all the depth and all the background. It's amazing. It is, that guy did some amazing work. So Tyler, if you're listening, that was amazing. And kudos to you, buddy. That was fantastic. What else came out? I know we kind of got the word that on the 15th.
Oh, so something that came out while we were discussing our last show, but we didn't ever touch on, Death Guard. We never even talked about
We didn't?
Death Guard being a whole 40K army from the
Okay.
ground up
Yeah, that's true.
being released that looked fantastic. And then the last picture they showed, a giant scythe capable of wounding a Primarch.
I wonder what. No.
Oh, man, that is awesome. I don't see why they would stop with just Rowboat Gilligan and
A robot girly man.
yeah.
All the names I've seen.
Yeah,
Oh, Lord.
so good. And then Cyclops Man. Why they would stop with them? Why not bring back Mortarion? And which, if they're going to bring back Magnus and Mortarion, then maybe we'll get Angron.
You think?
Oh,
Well, and that's the thing is Angron's not even close to dead. He's out there kicking around.
oh yeah. The Grey Knights have had to put him down a couple times.
Yeah, and he's been having consultations with Abaddon. So.
Oh man.
Or
And
Abaddon.
the Berserkers are due for an upgrade, I think. Maybe keep them in line with the new Karn model that was fantastic.
Oh, man, yeah. I see them doing, you did Magnus, they did Magnus and then they did Robot. So now we're going to see some others. I believe they're just going to go back and forth bringing these guys
That
back.
would be amazing.
And
We'll get Mortarion, then we'll get Rogol Dorn.
well, when we get to Corvad Corax, I'll get, frothy excited.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I'd imagine probably. Actually, I guess the Lion.
yeah,
would
that's
probably
going to be big. And they've hinted at that one pretty
Yeah.
hard about, coming straight out of their faces that no, he's not dead. They're just waiting for the Watchers in the Dark to let him go.
Yeah,
And those times are coming. The Watchers in the Dark probably should see what's happening. Probably should take the.
well, yeah, they
take
got to
the leash
join
off.
in Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade.
You think the Watchers are chaos?
No, I mean just the Dark Angels.
Oh, okay. You're poking holes in my narrative again.
Yeah. Wah, wah.
But yeah, I mean, really, I don't see any other New Dawn stuff. There's maybe a little calm before the storm because the Caradron Overlords are coming out. They did announce that they're doing, just like they did for the Stormcast Eternals, they're doing a pack of cards for the Khorne,
Yeah.
which I think is really good because with all those synergies with Khorne, there is so much to interrelate that trying to explain it to your opponent would be a pain.
Yeah.
You hand them the cards for the army you have and say, look at what I can do. So, but that's about it, right?
I think so.
Let's wrap it up then. Go to creation.
The realm of creation. Well, we're going to talk about what we've been up to in the hobby the last 2 weeks. Elric.
Yep.
He's creating right now as he reads The White Dwarf.
Creating a pup tent.
Someone's excited for Overlords.
All right, then we'll just pass it on to Bill.
Well, I finished the Ophidian Archway. That one's done. Now I've got to work on the 2 Numinous Oculums. And then because Chad pushed me last night, I've got to get to work on those Crypt Ghouls so that we can play our Death on Death match.
Okay.
So I want to have those up and running because I want to run the Ghoul Patrol for that game.
Sweet.
So yeah, but other than that, I don't think I've actually done a lot of work hobby wise, but none of it really shows because most of it was cleaning out this crap hole of a room. So yeah, but that was me. What about you, James?
What have I been up to? Okay, so I got my hands on a Sylvan Tower box
Nice.
and was able to convert 3 of the Zangors into Skyfires
Mm-hmm.
and one of them into a Zangor Shaman.
Nice.
So got those put together, converted them, and haven't painted to a pretty decent standard. I
I'd
used
say.
them last night.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what else did I do? Oh, I kind of retouched my blue horrors. They were a different blue than I'm going with for my new scheme, so I decided to use the same kind of tones I have in the rest of the army, because it's kind of like a bluish purple.
Yeah.
So I was able to actually go over those with a blue wash. I forget what the one is for that GW uses, but I was able to use some acrylic thinner with it and water that down a little bit where it wasn't too strong. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I didn't use blue. I didn't use Dragonoth Nightshade. I used the Druchii Violet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's what I did. So I used Druchii Violet, thinned that down with the acrylic thinner, and it went over. It wasn't too strong to where it made the whole model purple, but it was enough to tint it to give you that hint of purple, and then kind of went over those with some other blue. So those came out pretty good. Pretty happy with those.
They look good. I mean, I saw them last night. They look really nice. And
I rebased them onto 32s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I thought made a huge difference because I had half the models in 32s and half of them on 25s. And I was looking at them. I was like, 32 millimeter bases just make them feel a lot. I mean, the models, they're crazy. They have their hands out everywhere. I mean, they don't fit onto those 25 millimeters.
Yeah, they don't look right on that tiny base.
So happy with that now. Correct base sizes for that. And
and they're supposed to be on 32s, right?
Yeah, I think they're supposed to be on 32s. I think the new gang started has them on 32s. So
okay,
that's what I did.
Sweet.
Not too much. And I helped Jules put together some skeleton horsemen.
Yeah.
For the build, the league that we're doing. So should be fun. Just plug away on each.
There we go.
Have it done for the next tournament. Hopefully.
Nice. Very nice.
I'm over here flipping through the White Dwarf. And Kevin Chin, I doubt you'll listen, but if you do, I love you.
In a man way, or
sure, whatever way he desires. His artwork is fantastic.
Awesome.
Carry on.
Okay, so was that it for creation?
I think that's it.
All right, let's move on to battle.
The realm of battle, where these two chuckleheads are going to tell you about games they got to play. Yay!
So, what did we learn from that?
Bill, what did you have?
Okay, I guess I'll go. We got together last night. 4 of us from the club got together over at a clubmate's house. Chad, thank you for letting us use your new house that you just had painted and carpeted but haven't moved into yet, so it made for the perfect clubhouse. We got a little spoiled for a day. We played a couple of games. I'm putting together an escalation league at our local store, and we're, doing the typical start at 750, add 250 points per 2 weeks, and, try to build up a new army that way, and giving points for painting and points for building, as well as playing the games and other things. Trying to give points for, say, hosting a hobby session or hosting a class on how to do something for anybody new that might be jumping into the league. But we wanted to get a practice game in because, well, I kind of wanted it. I didn't know what anybody else wanted to, but I wrote a scenario on Friday for a 750-point game because I looked at some of the scenarios in the book, and I know they scale down okay, but I didn't think they would play well when you only have, a couple of 3-4 units on the board. It's going to be hard to do 3 places of power when you have 1 leader. I wrote a scenario that kind of tilts the rules a little bit. It's got, you deploy on diagonals rather than straight board, and you're trying to get a relic all the way across the board. It's got some little rules of its own. It's got kind of a different deployment mechanic. The person who has the artifact starts in a very small area of the board, and they have some benefits, but they have to go first in the first turn. The defender gets to set up on the entire opposite board half, but they set up second, but they're also going to have that first shot at the double turn. They can kind of look at what you're doing and where you're going to run, and hopefully, they have a lot of board to cover at the beginning, and that gives them kind of a turn to get to where you're going to be. Unfortunately, in my first game, I played Andrew, who won the LVO, and I played him with his Stormcast. And of course, they do their little, they do their Palador thing and their Knight Aquilor thing, and they just come in wherever the heck they want, so it was kind of a non-game, so he...
I heard he shot you off turn 2?
Yeah, he shot me off turn 2, yeah. It was... I think I lasted with models till turn 3, but... Yeah, he basically took my artifact and ran off the board. But I kind of expected it, and I'm not really going to tweak the scenario for that, because you have to be ready for it, because that's what Stormcasts do. I don't want to impinge on... I don't want to take something away from an army when that's their thing. So, I think it works.
Didn't I hear a story of your last model and how he... Was it your last model and how he died? Heroically?
He did... If you want to call it heroically? Sure. He ran off some deadly terrain. And Even Andrew was like, one. I picked up the die and sure, there it was, 1.
Wah, wah.
So, yeah, but at least I denied him the final kill. So,
There you go. Silver lining to that.
yeah. So in my second game, I played Chad with his Flesh Eater Courts army, and he had the Zombie King or Ghoul King on the Zombie Dragon, plus he had, his Crypt Ghouls and a couple of Crypt Horrors. And he had the artifact this time, and I was covering it. And I set up my Skyfires to take on his Zombie Dragon. And what was crazy was I did 10 points to him right off the bat. So I had him down to 4. And I'm like, okay, I can handle this. Then it proceeded to be his turn, and then he got a double turn and wiped both units of Skyfires off the map. And at that point, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to be 0 for 2 in my own scenario. But kept playing it out, kept working it. Turns out my unit of 10 Zangors went, and he concentrated on the Skyfires and left the 2 Shaman alive. The Shaman had all that spell power. They were able to blast a hole through all of his defenders. Skyfires went, grabbed the artifact, killed the Crypt Ghouls that had it, and I actually, at the very end of the game, I was able to make it off the board for a major. So
Nice.
yeah, it was one of those, it's that lesson in don't ever give up. It might look bad, but there's ways. It was 2 fun games, two great games. Andrew and I both learned a little bit about what our armies can do. I saw how I should have deployed a little bit better against what he was going to do. And then with Chad, it was just trying to make sure that he knew where you're going to be able to move and cover the move of that zombie dragon. Oh my God, that thing is a beast. So anyway, I know you played a game.
Yeah, I had a couple. Last week I played Robert.
Oh yeah.
With his Fire Slayers. He wanted to give it another try against the Gunline Zinch list. This time he tried to, I think he teleported his battle line unit. I forget what the hell it is.
Volkite Berserkers.
Yeah, he actually tunneled both of them. The Volkite Berserkers and the guys with the chains.
Hearthguard Berserkers.
Hearthguard, yeah. He tunneled up with both, I think it was a 25 man of the battle line guy.
Wow.
I think it was 25 in each unit. Or 30 in the battle line, 25 in the other one.
Damn.
Those are some pretty sizable units.
Yeah.
And we were playing Border War.
Okay.
Playing Border War. And he teleported in, hit my lines. Luckily, I had all my chaff in front, and he just killed a whole bunch of brimstones and blue horrors. I was like, cool.
Okay.
That's fine. And then I proceeded to had a nice Gaunt Summoner in range to
ouch.
That covered most of that unit and was able to roll 25 dice again.
Oh my God.
With his spell.
Yeah.
It's a nice anti-horde killer right there.
It is.
And then between that and all my spells and then all my shooting, I was able to take off, I believe, the Berserkers. The guys with the chains. Turn 1. Take him. I think between that, I killed enough, and then Battle Shock just took the rest. And he couldn't. He because they tunnel underneath. He couldn't give them the immune to Battle Shock.
Right.
So did that. Roll for turn 2, and I got the double turn.
Oh my God.
And the rest of my army did the same thing to the remaining to that other 30-man unit. Took them off, and it was pretty much at the end of turn 2. He had. I want to say 2 Dracoths, or not 2 of the
Magma Dragons,
Magmadroths,
yeah.
And some characters left. And
wow,
it was actually kind of tough because by turn 1 he actually claimed my objective.
Ooh.
And got the big. I think he had scored 4 points for mine, 2 for one of them, and then his. So he had scored 7 points that first round because he had killed enough of my stuff near the middle, to block me from getting it. So, I mean, I think he played it right. Just, some different things. It's just...
Target priority, more or less.
Target priority.
Kind of...
Zinch has that ability to sit there and... Yeah, luckily I had that Gaunt Summoner, too, with the anti-horde spell that was able to... And I think I rolled pretty decently for that.
I would say if you took off 25, you had to be rolling kind of good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his... Fire Slayer slaves helped a little bit with the 4-up or 5-up or whatever he gets with that, but...
Yeah.
Still in the end, was not enough. Landed barely, I think I barely pulled that one off. I think it was actually pretty close. It landed being like 24 to 22.
Damn.
in the end. I mean, he got that big. He
Got that big jump on you. Yeah.
big jump on turn 1, so that was me clawing it back for the rest of the turns, and then yesterday, playing the escalation practice thing, played Jules for 750 points. His list was the Vampire Lord on Abyssal Terra.
Ooh, nice.
A unit of 10 Tomb King horsemen with spears, and then 6 snakes.
And then 6 snakes.
At 750.
And you yell at me for having 6 Skyfires?
I think his snakes are actually cheaper than your Skyfires too. Maybe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, one. Yeah.
Yeah, they are 160 to 180.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that was a tough match. In
Please, God, give us General's Handbook 2 for Christmas.
Before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing my Tzeentch stuff. I think my list was just a Gaunt Summoner, unit of pinks, a unit of blues, a unit of brimstones, a Zangor Shaman, and 3 Skyfires. And then I had 140 points in summoning.
Yeah.
To give me options. And I'm trying out my summoning pool. Because in my main list, it's just all the bodies on the board. And I know people will say that the pinks are really good because you can do that whole spawning thing.
Right.
But that requires them dying.
Yes.
Which, in AOS, people have the option not to kill him, which is actually a very big important because in mine and Robert's game, his Magma Droth rushed into my army, and I just chose not to attack him. He was hoping to spill his lava blood
all over you
on the units and take him off that way to clear off that objective. And he found out that, nope, you don't have to attack.
I think that it's such a viable tactic, and it's coming out more, I think, with the Tzeentch book. People are seeing that you don't have to kill, you don't have to attack back. Really, and sometimes it makes a lot more sense to hold a unit where it is, especially if you've got like a unit of pink horrors that you know it's going to tar pit for at least 3 turns because of its ability to change into blues and then brimstones. There's a lot of times where it doesn't make any sense to attack.
Exactly.
If you're going to give them some sort of benefit, I mean, everybody knows Wrathmongers, but there's a lot of other things you don't want to attack in this game.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm playing with that summoning pool. I think my summoning pool, I had a couple different options. I could do an Exalted Flamer, 2 more units of blues and a brimstone, or a Balewind Vortex.
Yeah.
And a unit of brimstones.
Which you did.
Which I did. Love that 36-inch range for his spell that nukes units.
You know, it's funny listening, and I say this in the past tense because we've already recorded the interview, but you're going to hear coming up later about some changes to the Balewind Vortex. I really think something's got to be done about that, because there's some truth to that thing about the shenanigans of putting it on an objective, and then
I mean,
there's a lot of armies that can't do anything to take it away.
Yeah, and then there's some shenanigans you can do, especially with like Tzeentch. With the Change Host, you could have a Herald summon the Vortex, and then he switches places with the Lord of Change, and then the Lord of Change. I don't think that's the way it works, but technically, rules is written
as it's doable.
You could argue it. I wouldn't get used to that.
No. I think they really need to fact that thing and say that it can't be within, X of an objective.
Maybe. I mean, that's kind of like a house rule thing. I mean, that you'll just have to take care of. Because, I mean, 6 is always hit kind of thing. That's a nice house rule, because you can get some crazy shenanigans where you can't hit the other person no matter what. So, I mean, that's just one of those. Well,
I was looking through the South Coast GT pack today, and, they still have that rule about 6 is always hit. 6 is always wound. I do think the game needs that. Otherwise, you are taking some armies out of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So, but played that. I let him march the artifact in our game all the way up. Gave him that hope of getting it across the finish line,
and then snatched
and then crushed him. And then walked away with the objective for the touchdown.
Yay!
But no, that's fun. He did. I think he was able to do some shenanigans too. He almost got my pinks because I killed a snake. And then he was able to bring it back with the banner, and you can put it up an inch, and then they're a 4-inch base, and so he was able to get 5 inches close to that unit. Nice. I thought I was pretty safe. I thought he had like a 12-inch charge, but with the extra inch in the banner, it landed up only being like a 7-inch charge, which is what he rolled. So there's definitely some shenanigans you can do.
Oh yeah,
with that kind of stuff. Just learning the army and whatnot.
Yep.
But I think that's all I have.
I think that's it for battle. All right, let's move on to lore. It'll be fun. The Realm of Lore. Where this episode, we're going to bring you 2 great interviews. As we said at the top of the show, as we've got David Griffin from the NashCON out in Nashville on June 3rd and 4th. He's telling us all about how they're going to run that and how it's going to go. It sounds like it's going to be a really great event. And then we've got a great interview with Paul Murphy, or the Paul Murphy, from Forge the Narrative podcast, a top-notch podcast. It is 40K, but the way the guys talk about gaming in general, anybody can get stuff out of it. And they do a great segment on there for finishing moves where they talk about painting, finishing in terms of painting your models. And it's not so much, what brushstroke to use on this thing, but it's kind of concept how to paint things and how to make things pop and really look good. And they typically knock it out of the park. And in this very latest episode, they have the amazing, awesome 1.5 thin coats Duncan Rhodes on their finishing move segment. So it's pretty awesome. Listen to that for sure. But before we get to those, we want to hit a topic that's always near and dear to our hearts.
That's my heavy breathing as I look at Mark, Roger, and Overlords and this White Dwarf. Wait,
that wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but we could go there. Give me my magazine back, all right?
Some of the pages might be sticking together afterwards.
So am I going to have to give you that one and get another one?
That's a lump of White Dwarf there.
All right, I'm going to go to the store and buy yours.
Should have got the digital copy.
I did.
Oh, well, there you go. See? That one just need a wet nap.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, James, you wanted to talk about some stuff?
Yeah. So as everyone knows, we had Adepticon a couple weeks ago, and listened to some podcasts and heard some feedback on the event and whatnot, and just some stuff I heard rubbed me the wrong way.
I mean, people are still talking about Adepticon.
Oh, God. That is so March. God.
Yeah, I know. So, just some of the things I heard was, or it's not necessarily at Adepticon necessarily aimed, but I've just been hearing this thing. It's like, well, events that include quote unquote soft scores and whatnot, they're just not as competitive as other events, or they should be hobby events and whatnot. That's not really competitive stuff. Where I think that events that have hobby scores, that have painting, that have sportsmanship, I would argue are probably even more competitive than your vanilla tournaments without the book missions, because you're not competing in just one aspect of the game, battle. You're competing on battle. You're competing on painting. You're competing on being a good person. That tournament is requiring more of their players, and requiring more of your player is never a bad thing.
Right.
And I think Adepticon is a good, people always, we've heard a lot of praise about the AOS scene.
Yeah.
About how, armies look good. Everything's amazing. That's not just by chance. It's not just because we're the AOS community that just, it just happens.
It doesn't fall that way.
The reason it's happened in the past is because TOs hold their players to a higher standard. You will have your army painted to a certain standard. You will behave in a certain way. And because of these rules that TOs have put in place, it's shaped our community already.
Right.
I just don't like it when people start degrading and downplaying those kind of tournaments and saying they're not competitive. They don't really matter in that kind of sense. In actuality, those are the ones that probably mean more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I get a kick out of it whenever I hear people talk about tournaments that have, different format scenarios, that have different elements to them that aren't standard, out of the General's Handbook, or, whatever standard pack you use, dictum from GW. They harp on those things as adding too many random elements to the game. And I just sit there and I look down at the 7,500 dice that I have and go, why did I buy all those if I'm not playing a game that has random elements?
Yeah, I mean, how much more different is it than you just roll? Having really bad luck in rolling. You can't roll more than a 3 in a freaking game. It's the same thing, and it just makes. And those type of events push your generalship. You have to really think on your feet and try to work with what you have and try to make it work the best you can. And I don't think it was impossible. There was plenty of the good players that I thought were going into the event that were going to do good. If you look at the results, they did good. The Brads and the David Griffins and all that stuff, they were top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought they were doing good. They did good.
Mm-hmm. You hit it right on the head when you talk about the cream rises to the top. When you have these different elements that you can't necessarily always plan for, but you have to play to at the minute. And that shows who the really good players / generals are. Anybody can just go into a tournament knowing I'm going to play scenario 1, then scenario 2, then scenario 3. Here's my list for each one of those. And, okay, yeah, wow, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just, it just kind of like, people enjoy different things. That's cool.
Exactly.
Whatever. But just, going there and just, it's less competitive. It's not this and that. It just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, we don't need that kind of attitude necessarily. I mean, and people are entitled to opinions.
And that's how you start schisms, though, in the group. And that's how you end up with different groups, is you start harping on things like that. Kind of like, I guess, what we're doing. But, but yeah, that's the whole thing, is you're going to run the event you want to have. And people are going to go to the events that they want to go to. So this will sort itself out. Thoughts?
Me?
Well, yeah. We're both.
Oh.
Because you haven't said anything in like 2 minutes, and we know that had to hurt. God. I'm sorry, James.
Oh, man. I don't know. I have to disagree with both of you. I have to say that the only way to get a true winner is to play the game in a white, sterile lab where there's absolutely no randomness whatsoever. Both players are wearing the exact same set of clothes. They're both the same height. You wouldn't want somebody having a reach advantage. I don't know. No, I mean, yeah.
Call the basement needs cleaning. Come on.
I think you're right, man. I think we've touched on this before, where people want to say the best result is from a game that uses just pure scenarios from the General's Handbook or whatever, and it's like, well, when you add secondary or tertiary objectives or whatever you want to do, like, or even how David was talking about adding schemes to his events at NashCON, a true general is going to be able to adapt to that.
That's right.
And play around it and utilize it and get the win. And a true hobbyist is going to be able to do all that with a well-painted army and making his opponent enjoy the game. And I think that's the person that should be looked up to the most.
Yeah.
Not just somebody who can, because of the dice, you could easily say that you'll never have a true best general. I could, looking at our moves on the tabletop, I could make better moves and better choices than you, but the dice could still hold me back from the win, and that's not blaming dice for my losses or anything like that. I blame a terrible book like Iron Jaws. But I'm just saying, that sometimes the dice are just like, no, bro, no wins for you.
Right. It happens.
It does happen. And so what do you say? Like, I should be the better general, but I'm not because the dice screwed me. I don't know. It's all subjective in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I think just because certain scores are subjective, they shouldn't be downplayed either. I mean, you can still compete in those aspects. I mean, they had Crystal Brush at Adepticon. That is a subjective painting competition we didn't downplay the person who won Crystal Brush. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a subjective painting contest. You really didn't win, you know.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've looked at the model that won the Crystal Brush, and I thought some of the other gold winners were actually better. But
controversy.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's the whole thing is I know the people who are judging this are a lot better than I am at painting, and they're looking at technique and what was done and this, that, and the other thing, in addition to how it simply looks on the thing. That's all I'm getting is a picture of the model. These guys are examining every part of how it was done. Again, same thing in the game. When you have all these additional things, you're now adding all those different variables to see who really is the most adaptable / best general overall. I have to be able to paint. I have to not be a jerk. Oh, and I might have to react to something that's not in the basic rules. Oh, no. Okay, I quit. I'm not doing this. Yep. It's not in the basic rule book.
And
get it.
And we've seen people, adapt to that. I mean,
right.
I think Brad Rallian on Twitter, he's a great example of that. He gets that Objecticon checklist, and he paints to that checklist because he doesn't want to leave any points on the table.
And it wasn't hard.
And it's not hard. I mean, I think he
reads the tournament pack before going. Madness.
I think I was looking at his paint score.
We're presupposing he reads.
I mean,
sorry,
I was looking at his paint score, and I think he almost got max points.
I think so. Yeah.
I think he was at 24, 25 points out of So he's not winning overall best painted, but he's doing what he needs to do to meet that criteria to win. And I think that that's great. It makes his army look good. I mean, it's just a matter of expecting more, I think.
Yeah. But no, it's really true. It is, we keep seeing this danger of falling down that pit of throwing away all the stuff that makes fantasy so great, and don't want to see that day when it's just, a tuna can with a horse in front of it, and that's my Celestial Hurricanum because I can't order it or I don't feel like ordering it. So yeah, I don't want to be in that community. Shall we move on to some interviews?
Let's
do it.
Okay. We're gonna do some interviews now.
So joining us right now is Paul Murphy from the Forge the Narrative podcast. If you don't listen, you very much should. It's a fantastic 40K hobby podcast. Paul, I wanted to have you on to discuss the 40K scene and how one of our big things that we've kind of talked about from the beginning of our show is because 40K has been a big part of our hobby as well. We haven't been playing it for quite some time, and we've been noticing a lot of 40K players come in, and so the emphasis on different scoring styles is being shifted around. It feels like there's now a large group of people that are pushing solely for pure battle points. They don't want to be hassled with soft scores, or what air quote soft scores, however people want to coin that term for like paint and sports. There's also like a group that's kind of like, well, if that's part of the gig, then so be it. I'll do that if it's required.
Yo, man, thanks for bringing me in. First off, sorry, I really, I appreciate it. I want to, if I can lead off. You mentioned soft scores, and I want to just come right out swinging that I believe that the term soft scores is a bit of a stigma, and that's keeping some of these things from taking more of the limelight, more of a top consideration for people, because some, and rightly so, some of them are very subjective. And so I guess I want to lead out right there by saying that I think that calling them soft scores is probably a misnomer and part of the problem.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned in our podcast too that we should go do away with that term, because I think you're right. It does have some negative connotations with it, and it's just part of your score. It is, and that's what it is. Even though it's subjective or whatever, it's still part of your score.
You can make it fairly clear, like a lot of tournaments will do like a checklist for paint, and if you hit all this very clear checklist, but even then some of that is still open for interpretation to an extent. You're always going to have that. And then sports, it seems like, is always the most controversial way you can generate points, whether
sports is something you have to wrestle with, man. I mean, when you put part of your fate in the hands of someone that you just beat, it's very difficult.
Right. Well, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you, because at Adepticon, your team got best sports, which is amazing. Congratulations on that, by the way.
I think it's the second most difficult award to win in that tournament.
After just the general win?
After overall, I think it's the hardest one to get.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. The thing is sports is so subjective, though. It's some people may say that. If I can also state that there multiple people got max sports votes. It then comes down to battle points, and so that's the tiebreaker is battle points, and we did very well in the battle point section. Yeah, I kind of like that because it shows that you were still gunning for it. But we're still fun to play. And I think that's a great blend. A lot of times it's just sports, and then if there's a tie, they'll dice off or something like that. But I kind of like the idea of this.
I'd much rather have it based on something like, battle points, because like you said, you were out there to win, but you were also out there to make sure it wasn't a negative play experience for the other guys.
That's very important for me in general as gaming. And we rolled in as a team with 15 Centurions. Which I don't know if you guys know a lot about.
Oh yeah,
40K.
Yeah.
But 15 total Centurions split across two tables is a lot of Centurions. But we had great people. I mean, people that were focused on having a good time. I mean, now granted, but it's more than that. Like we showed up with, in my opinion, well-painted armies with a well-painted display, with a well-done display, with a theme. We weren't just there to wring people's necks. It was the whole package. I mean, at a tournament, you should be there to try your best. And I'm using that in air quotes. You can't see; it's horrible for radio. But
right.
Yeah,
you're trying your best, right?
Right. Exactly.
But that wasn't our singular focus. Was to take heads off. It was the total package in the hobby.
So, what do you think about a system for scoring sports that includes not so much, just an up or down vote, but something like 5 questions? Was the guy on time? Was he prepared? Did he know how to play his army and his list? Very, very objective things that you can say yes or no to.
Yeah, you just hit on some critical factors, because did you have, the pass-fail sportsmanship of the tournaments that we exist in right now is, look, I do not want to come off as any way ungrateful at all. The people that voted for us for best sport, we played against 5 great teams as well. We also voted them great sports because they were. It wasn't like a massage thing. They were great players, fun to play against, and that's very important. But sometimes at tournaments you run into situations to where you played 4 great people, 5 great people, and you've just got to vote for one of them. It's so difficult. But what you just discussed was like objective questions that do not have any subjectivity at all, other than just the perception. The things that you could answer, even if you did just get beat, you're kind of a little bummed because you just got beat or whatever. Still award what I would consider a fair or equitable score to your opponent.
Yeah, and I've always struggled with that, even at LVO where they did the best opponent vote, where you just cast your lot for one guy. It's a good system and it works and it's simple, but it's so out there. I also don't like systems where you rate somebody 1 to 5. If you rate somebody a 1, it gives me a question in my mind: should that guy even be in the tournament if he's that bad?
Well, there are some out there that you have to rank your 5 opponents from 1 to 5. Yeah. Like how do you give? You could easily play against 4 4s. Exactly. It's tough. It's so difficult. Sports is one of those things to where now I think we're all rational people, and I'm sure that you have rational listeners. We can determine the difference between our 3rd and 4th favorite opponent. But there's a lot of people out there who can't, and it's not fair.
Well, not only that, but you could, in a 5-round event, you could have 4 amazing opponents and 1 dick. And then it's like, well, I'm saying that another one of those great opponents was pretty much the equivalent of the guy that I really didn't enjoy playing a game against. So that's not fair either, So.
Can I hijack things for just with a little bit of a personal opinion on things?
Sure.
Please.
Okay. This is something I've never really talked about before. And I think that as people, as tournament goers, if you're playing in a system where Sportsmanship is a factor, and it should be. Like there's a social contract when you come up to a table with someone that you should both be trying to achieve the same goal, which is having a good time and murderizing the other person. You know, I'm a big believer in that. But I play some people, even in my local environment, that are just kind of like what I consider almost blanks. Like when I play them, whether I win or lose, I know that I'm never, ever getting their opponent vote. I'm never getting their favorite opponent vote because they don't want to give me any extra points to try to beat them in the overall tournament.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's terrible.
Yeah, that's where that objective questionnaire kind of sports thing would really help, because they can't. I mean, technically they could screw you, but
you know what I'm saying? Even if you do play in an environment like that, I want to implore people to not be the blank.
Yeah.
Like be the person that has an open mind to really look at your games that day or that weekend. And if you're playing in an environment that has votes or you had to vote for one single person, don't rule somebody out because you think they have a better shot at winning the tournament. Don't rule somebody out because 9 years ago you played a bad game against them. You know, like just have an open mind. Don't be the blank for someone else.
So let's talk a little bit about Warzone Atlanta and I guess the would you call it the southern scene for 40K, or the more East Coast style of play? Because you incorporate, again, I know we're trying to get away from the term, but for the sake of the conversation, the soft scores, is that something that's pretty common in the general area, or is that something that you and your group have kind of championed?
It was very important to me when we did Warzone Atlanta to have it be a social atmosphere. To have it be, I think that a lot of tournaments, and this is common, in lots of places. I'm not picking on anyone particular, to where you have a lot of drops at tournaments. And I wanted to really incorporate a system that led to people playing the whole weekend and always feel like they're in contention for something the whole weekend. And so we have, to that end, this is all leading up to a system that promotes this type of play. You kind of, put your money where your mouth is kind of thing, to where there are 4 champions of Warzone Atlanta. If you were to ask me who won Warzone Atlanta, I'm going to tell you these 4 people. And that is what is classically known as the best general, the best all-around score. I don't want to say player, the best all-around score maker. The guy that has the best hobby scores, and the guy that got the most favorite opponent votes. The best sport. We've named them something different, so it's not best of this, best of that, because the internet and people in general kind of gravitate towards the battle points winner. There's a culture out there that thinks the battle points winner is the best person at the tournament. And I think for some tournaments, the culture that you cultivate is important. But what we wanted to do at Warzone specifically, and it was a change. It's a change from the Southeast environment. Like, we've got some amazing tournament players down here in the South. And great people that organize the tournament scene in the local area. So how do we make that, a little bit more awesome? Well, then we figure out a way to award more prizes. And what's the best way to keep people engaged is thinking they're all competing for championship spots.
Now, do you feel like that has compromised in any way the overall competitiveness of the event? Or do you feel like your event is just as, if somebody is going there just to try their list against the hardest stuff and prove that they are a solid general, that challenge is still equally there as it is for as somebody who's going there to just have a good time and play some solid games with their well-painted army?
I would put the two champions that have a battle point focus at Warzone against anyone in the country or the world.
Ooh, nice. Period.
Bar none. Say that with the straightest face possible. And now, I'm not saying I'd put my best sport up against the top battle point winner at Adepticon. I'm not saying that. What I'm telling you is that the winners that have a battle point component in their scores, they are some of the best players in the entire world.
I think that's a good statement to make, because it shows that you can have an event that focuses on the entirety of the hobby that still generates players that are solid generals at the game.
And if I can, if I can brag on my events,
you go ahead,
just a little bit. Of three major events of 60 people and plus, over 100 people at the last one, we have had one person drop.
Oh.
A single person drop.
Wow.
That's
and
huge.
The one person that did drop did it because he was too drunk to compete on Sunday morning.
Oh, wah, wah.
All right. So he just partied too hard. He didn't drop because he wasn't having a good time. He dropped because he was just having too much of a good time.
Nice. Well, that's awesome.
Warzone Atlanta, you used a whole different comp framework for that. In fact, I believe you had no comp. You allowed anything and everything, right?
Essentially, yes, we did. Now, I believe in protecting the experience of the middle tables. I think that anytime that you change something or alter something or restrict something, it should be in the mind of preserving the experience of those middle 60 tables or so, 50 tables or so, 40, whatever your event, whatever the large percentage of the middle tables that you have, because the people that are on the bottom tables, they're playing for a different reason than the people that are playing on the top tables, probably.
And they're normally playing just as hard too.
Yeah, I agree. But they're just playing. They're playing with different kind of goals in mind. The people on the middle tables are having dreams of the people on the bottom tables and people at the top tables.
Yeah.
So, but they're the ones that I consider the most. I don't want to say fragile is a terrible term, but I consider them to be the ones that you should be most concerned about with your organization. And so the restrictions that we made were only limiting the Lords of War. So the behemoths or the whatever, that kind of thing. The things that big creatures that make an impact, they create what I consider a fun sponge environment.
Yeah.
So we put a limit of only taking one of those.
Fair enough.
But everything else is unlimited.
I like that. When I heard about your format, I was wishing I actually was back in 40K and could go to something like that and not be a fool. So,
I was wishing I even understood 40K at this point. It's been a while. So speaking of 40K, you were at Adepticon, obviously, and you got to be there for part of the announcement for what is, I'm assuming, is 8th edition. How excited are you about that, and how do you feel? What's your take on the pulse of the 40K community with that announcement?
Let me tell you, I'm a giant fanboy.
Right.
I was third in the door.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and that's because I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the play. I didn't know where it was. I was wandering around. Some of that's all my fault. I was hammered. But
camping out like a new iPhone, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was prepared to do that. I thought I was just going to get register and then walk, sit in line. Third in the door.
Nice.
And I'm very excited about the changes. Now, I mean, not because I don't like 40K right now. I think that there are some things that are difficult. I think that if you don't, once you start applying like math and real numbers to things, you have to, and you want to compete, you've got to plan for that. And some of those numbers are daunting and intimidating. And I'm saying this with the fact that I understand, I'm sympathetic to this. This is not, I'm certainly not trivializing anyone's opinion on this. I agree with them. You have to plan for it and try to beat it, specifically if you're going to play at the top levels. And that's not what everyone wants to do. And in addition, 7th edition made everyone good at 40K to where you could just take a mathematically superior list and do all right. And I think that the changes that they are suggesting open it back up to exciting times, similar to the where it was in editions past.
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like it's been heavily influenced by Age of Sigmar. And I just listened to your interview with Robin Crudis and Jess and Eddie.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that's a lucky you, man, to get an interview like that. But yeah, you could definitely tell there were hints that borrowed bits of what is successful, and they'd be crazy not to. Age of Sigmar, I think Age of Sigmar is probably the most successful game to be launched. I mean, I know a lot of people probably say 40K, but if you look at the trajectory of Age of Sigmar, it's like a rocket taking off, especially once the General's Handbook came out.
Well, it gave structure. The General's Handbook gave structure to people, right. And it took those people that were what maybe us 40K players would consider fringe players, the people that want the narrative or want the campaign style or the match play or the Unbound kind of thing. It took the Unbound and the narrative players and gave them context.
Yeah.
And then it basically codified the competitive players. And it just is like wildfire.
Yeah, it scratched everybody's itch simultaneously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, they'd be crazy, I think, not to borrow from... Because Age of Sigmar is very simplistic in its approach to a game, but it's a very in-depth tactical game. Whereas 40K, I think you would agree with me, is a little convoluted at the moment. So to like... streamline that way down, I think is probably the best move. And we've been calling it for a while. When I saw that screenshot of open narrative matched with like a Primarch on there, I was like, oh, here we go. Called it. So you're obviously pretty excited about the new edition.
Very, very excited. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things to where we need some shakeup. And one of the things I like about Sigmar is that everything dies.
Yes.
In 40K, you don't have that. You create these kind of... Now, look, you can stack it up, and it's a direct response. Like, I'm a Death Star player, and people hate on Death Stars all the time. But, if they weren't playing some stupid shooting army, I wouldn't need a Death Star.
Yeah, it's taking an extreme to beat an extreme.
I created this Super Friends list.
Yeah.
And then the first time I rolled it out was at a 40K invitational tournament. So you got people there that think that they are just the best in the freaking world. They're just walking on clouds. They're just amazing at 40K.
Right. And
there was this Tau player there. And I'm talking about like he's the quintessential Tau player that no one likes. and I mean this because he's got like toys as his riptides.
Oh God.
And I'm not crapping on him, man, but I am at the same time,
Right.
And I mean, it's like he had cardboard for one of his bases. It's like you couldn't even get a big oval base. Come on, man.
Yeah.
And then he begins to shoot at my Super Friends, and I absorb or feel no pain all of it. So his entire army does like 2 wounds because let's be real, that's what the math says.
Right.
And he accuses me, of poor play.
Whoa.
Nice.
So then I began to have to explain to him the math of a D6.
Right.
And then I had to crush his dreams like, hey, man, I understand that you have been used to wrecking people that weren't planned for this.
Yeah.
But this is unfortunate that now there's math here the math is swung to my side where it wasn't your side before. So I had to do this to keep you from killing now this guy rolled dice for an hour and a half.
Oh God.
So, but that's the I mean, and I'm only saying this as a lover of the game but this is the perception. Like this guy thought it was within his right to roll dice for an hour and a half and take up, in one shooting phase.
So he's playing in the cunning ruck of 40K.
Yeah, and then I'm just taking saves where in the game before I would just be removing models. So he thought it was his right to just roll dice and my right to remove models.
Right. Yeah.
So then he finally comes up against a list that doesn't remove models, and then that began this like tide of serious rock paper scissors to the extreme, and that is what 40K has become.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, sometimes it's cool, and sometimes you've got 2 scissors on scissors. Sometimes you have 2 rocks on rocks, and continue the analogy. So you have fun games like that. But if you're the dude who doesn't know all this stuff, and you roll in with the rock to somebody's paper,
Right.
You're going to have a terrible time.
Yeah.
But in Sigmar now, we've got a situation to where it's like everybody can compete.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I think there's still the occasional paper, rock, scissors that comes up, but it's not as bad because, like you were saying earlier, everything can die. Nothing in the game is invincible, and the game revolves around a lot of synergy, but the synergies can be attacked because you can't hide a character. You can't do a Super Friends style thing where you wrap your synergies up in invincibilities. If you can catch that character out, then you can start to pick apart your opponent's army and still, have a puncher's chance of pulling down a win.
That's really important.
So now, how do you feel the community, at least in your area or possibly as a whole of 40K, how do you think they're going to accept this new edition? Because there was kind of a smoking crater left where Warhammer Fantasy was when Age of Sigmar dropped. 40K is going to have the advantage of coming out essentially with a General's Handbook day one. They're not, you guys aren't going to have the year of wandering through the desert. So, do you think the general community is pretty pumped about this, or do you think there's going to be much lamentation and gnashing of teeth?
I think we have some people that are firmly entrenched. I mean, like firmly entrenched in the way 40K works right now. And they spend a lot of time chasing that perfect list combo that is not rock, paper, scissors. It is something else. It's Lizard Spock, where there are fewer spoils. And I think there's going to be some amount of resistance. But I think there are enough people that are waiting for that. And they learned their lessons from Sigmar, man. I said, and I'm telling you, I've had conversations. I don't know if you guys have heard some of my interviews in the past, but I got to talk to the man himself, Jervis.
Right.
And he gave what I consider a real person's take on it. Of this is kind of where things. I don't want to say, I'm not putting words in his mouth. I think the guy really appreciated what the General's Handbook meant to all the players and understands its importance. And so we're not going to have that kind of situation happen in 40K, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, definitely.
They're going to come out of the gate with supporting the different types of play. And we're all going to benefit from it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys have the benefit of, we all have the benefit of, they learned their lesson. And they learned it really, really well. So I foresee, even with what you're doing now with Gathering Storm and just the amazing changes and the way the story is advancing, you can just tell that they're going to do this one right. They are not going to make those mistakes again.
Sure.
So I am so jazzed for the future. It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm ready to play.
It's going to be great. I mean, I think it's just kind of hang on. Like anything, what I love about, or at least what I hear from my Sigmar folks, is that if there's something you like, you can play it.
Yeah, for sure. That is, everything is viable to a degree, which is great, because it gets old getting, like you hear your army is getting redone, or this new army is coming out and you're stoked for it. And then you sit down and start math hammering the book, and you're like, well, out of these 10 units and 6 characters, these 2 units and this 1 character are the only thing worth taking. Spam away, and it's like, kind of sucks to see that over and over again. Kurnoth Hunters.
And I don't think that the Warhammer team folk, I mean, I have no insight. I just don't think that that's what they want either. I think that they would, in a world they would like to live in, that if you want to play Ogren, you get to play Ogren.
Right.
Well, and it only makes sense from a retail point of view. Don't make anything that you sell useless. Otherwise, it won't sell. So make sure everything has a value in some facet of the game. Now, maybe, there's armies in Sigmar that are no good for matched play. There's certain factions that either don't have enough in their range or what have you, but they're perfectly acceptable in narrative play.
I hope it's not Sylvaneth. I just started Sylvaneth.
No, I'm pretty sure you'll be okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. They're kind of susceptible to mortal wounds.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to a trigger point, that's all.
It's Seraphon. Seraphon are literally unplayable.
They are unplayable.
God.
And I'm sorry I wandered around a little bit, but I know we're kind of touching around. We're kind of skirting that balance between, what we consider hardcore tournament play. How do you make the social contract factor into tournament play, without devaluing anything else?
Sure.
It's tough.
Yeah. That's something that, TOs have struggled with since time began. I've been to European tournaments. I've been to American tournaments. You hardly ever see the same system used in the same place twice.
Well, any system is gameable, right?
Yeah.
So how do you strive to make the perfect system that isn't gameable? I mean, if somebody had figured it out, we'd all be using it. Well, probably not, because we all get our egos involved. But
well, I think that's the point that some people make about comp is that, you try to instill a form of comp to air quotes balance the game in your view, and really all you're doing is shifting the goalposts, and then somebody's going to find a way to break your comp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it never really fixes anything, and it generally always seems to be the armies that are still really good are still just as good under your comp system, right. And the armies that lag behind didn't really. In fact, a lot of times they get worse.
Well, compared to a 40K analogy is like Eldar. You can't put limiters in the game that do anything to hurt Eldar. I mean, if you put any limiters, you're only hurting the codexes that are already hurting in the first place.
You could just ban them.
Yeah. So you run into situations to where, what I think that, in my opinion, the way to balance the game currently is through mission design and point values, point limits for the tournament itself. But not everyone feels that way. And there's multiple, and that's the beauty, man. I love it when there are multiple formats. It's like Magic the Gathering does a really great job at this, of having multiple supported formats. So if I want to play a modern event, I could be really good at modern. If I want to play a standard, I could go try to be good at standard and legacy. And there's all these other type of formats that they support. And Games Workshop is barreling towards something similar.
That's been something we've talked about with a buddy of ours who does another podcast, Scrubby and Wells. Is they've used Magic the Gathering and Wizards of the Coast as an analogy to Games Workshop and the success that Wizards of the Coast has had with the different formats of Magic and all that stuff. So
the only thing I would add is, Paul, I still have that jar of Bad Ab Black Wash if you want it.
Oh, I would love it. Man, I'm telling you.
I know we talked about a year ago about that. I said I've got it, and you were like, I still have enough. So whenever you need it, let me know.
I think I'm okay. I mean, I use that stuff like I am rationing out water from a canteen.
The Citadel War Tour.
Yep. I'm not kidding though. I have started a Sylvaneth army, and I painted my test model and I posted up on Twitter at Warmaster_TPM.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Nice.
And I'm very happy with how it's turning out.
Awesome.
And there is if I can plug somebody real quick.
Absolutely,
please.
Plug away.
And this, I don't do a lot of plugging, but there's a Shadow's Edge Miniatures, I think is what it is. But he makes self-adhesive grass tufts. But it's not just grass. He has flowers and shrubs and stuff. It has the best adhesive that I've ever seen on a tuft.
Cool.
And I'm now using that exclusively. And he has some cool flowers and stuff that I'm going to use because I want to go for a very summer theme on my Sylvaneth.
Right on.
And I haven't done the bases yet, but that's going to be my go-to.
Nice. James is showing me a picture of it right now. I like that. I like the contrast of the bow. This makes for great radio as well. But
yeah, right.
Get on Twitter and check it out.
Tutorial on YouTube. If you just do like Kurnoth Hunter painting guide or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a guy who did a tutorial, and I'm sorry, I'm spaced on the name, but I love his color choices. It's a very, like the pots of paint you need. I think it's like 5-6 pots of paint total to create that.
Nice.
Right on. Well, awesome.
So anyway, you did a good job, and that's what I tried to mimic. I'm not a good. I have zero artistic talent. I just follow the instructions of others.
Well, I don't know.
I've seen some of your armies, man. They're pretty good.
Your display board.
Thank you.
Your display board for Adepticon is very impressive. Quite the project.
That was a lot of pressure with the team. Now look, they had ultimate faith in me, and they did not make it stressful. But I took it upon myself to have a lot of weight to that, and I'm happy that it turned out as well as it did.
Nice. And you said you shipped that through FedEx or whatever, and only like one antenna broke or something?
Well, no, shipping it there, it arrived safe and sound. There was an antenna, a single antenna broke off.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a very pleasant experience. I'm glad we got the full use of it, and it shipped. And what I did was, secret tip here, is that I called the shipping company and asked them what my maximum dimensions were to the cost. So there's like a dimension to cost ratio.
Yeah.
Right.
And built the board based on that. I didn't build it and said, hey, what do we do now?
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Instead of just cramming it into the biggest box you can find and then hoping the guys don't drop it or whatever.
I'm a planner. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. I'm so glad you came on to do this interview and talk to us about, it's kind of like this apprehension about a lot of 40K players kind of coming over to the AOS scene, and I kind of wanted to get the voice out that no, there are a lot of 40K players out there that the whole hobby is very important, and it's reflected in the events that are being run. It's not just blood for the blood god, as it were.
Well,
so
I think there needs to be a slight shift in what we revere. I mean, like the 40K community right now, at least the vocal ones on the internet, revere the battle points, the win at all costs, the throat slitters, the head takers,
right.
And that's not all what this hobby is about. And so if we get more events that are running that find a way, now their own way, I'm not saying use my way or anybody's way, I find their own way to really revere and reward what we consider the total hobby package, I think we'll see it kind of permeate the culture a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's what we've been championing.
Yeah, and I think if you hold people to those expectations, people are willing to meet your expectations in that kind of sense. Whereas if you lower that bar and just like, gray plastic, half assembled models is okay, then that's what they'll meet. But if you hold your players to a higher standard, they're willing to meet those standards, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. Right on. Is there anything you want to add or shout out or plug? Or?
No, y'all have indulged me and I really appreciate it. I got to just go all out. So thank you.
On. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, really do appreciate it. And once again, you're the host of the Forge the Narrative podcast. I'll have it in the show notes. If you're at all interested in miniatures hobby, this is definitely one of the podcasts to listen to because these guys keep it upbeat, keep it positive. And we were talking earlier, you have a finishing move segment on your podcast that anybody that paints armies should definitely listen to.
That's high praise, and I really appreciate that. You can find us at forgethenarrative.net.
Nice.
And that's and in iTunes. Yeah, thank y'all very much. Good night, guys.
All right, take care, Paul. Thank you. Okay, and now for your listening pleasure, we've got David Griffin on, and he is going to tell us all about the Age of Sigmar events that he's going to be running at the NashCON, which is a big convention going on in Nashville. So without further ado, Dave, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm David Griffin. I'm an Age of Sigmar player in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to be TOing the Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament at NashCON this year. We're really excited about it. It's going to be a 5-game, 2-day event, 2,000 points, match play, generalist handbook scenarios. And we're really excited because this will be one of the first true 2-day GTs in like the Southeast region. And so we're trying to kind of energize our area and also bring in players from anywhere they want to come play some Age of Sigmar. We need more 2-day tournaments. And so this is kind of an exercise in getting more players playing the game and rolling some dice. Yeah, so like I said, 5 games, 2 days. Trying to think if there's anything in particular that's unique. So we'll be doing the 2-list submission. So instead of doing like a sideboard or anything like that, or just a single list, we're going to do the 2 lists, which is something that Facehammer used.
Yeah,
I thought it was an interesting concept that I personally haven't experienced yet in a tournament. And so I thought it'd be interesting to try it out. I know it's kind of tried and true over there. So, and then basically what that consists of is you take 2 lists and you have to play with both of them at least once. And the list changes to the list can be as minor as different artifacts or traits between the 2 armies, or they can be as different as like completely new models as long as they're the same alliance. We like the two lists because it allows you to kind of tames some of the big net lists. So if you know people are going to run Scryer, then you can bring one of your two lists can be a counter Scryer list, right? And we just thought it was a pretty appealing. And so there's basically the two lists, and then there's the sideboard. Those are the two you choose from if you're not going to do a single list format. And while I like sideboards and I've run those before, they do add to the pregame a little bit, and so you kind of have to factor that into the overall tournament schedule if you're going to do a sideboard. So I mean, there's not one that's better than the other, I don't think, but the two different ways of skinning the cat.
It sounds really. I'd be real interested to hear how that comes out, because on our last podcast we talked a little bit about the difference between sideboard and two lists and all that stuff, and be real interested to hear how it works out and what your community thinks about it.
Definitely, because I'd entertained potentially the idea of running a double list for the Rolling Bad Rumble this year, just because it sounded like you were saying it's sounds very interesting, and it's definitely something that we never did in 8th edition or anything like that. Have you gotten any feedback, like pre-tournament feedback about it, or concerns or anything like that?
So I have gotten some feedback it's been largely positive. I think Malifaux, is it that runs the two lists, or is it War Machine?
War Machine does it in almost all their formats.
And so I think from most people who've talked to me about it that have some kind of knowledge about the War Machine community, they all are very positive about it. I think I maybe have heard from one person who is not a huge fan of the two list format, but I mean, different strokes for different folks, right? I mean, it's
sure.
You can't please everyone. But I think overall, I think the adage is you build a tournament that you'd want to attend. And so I think this is something that I would personally want to play in. And so I think it seemed like something that went over really well at Facehammer.
Yeah.
Might as well give it a try.
I definitely would like to try an event that's like that. It sounds very interesting. And there's times, when you're playing like a 5 or 6 game tournament and round 3 or 4 rolls around and there's a glaring issue with your list that you didn't catch before. And now it's painfully obvious and you're like, oh, crap, I still gotta power my way through the rest of this tournament, knowing that this weakness in my list just is going to prevent me from really getting anywhere. It's like, well, with the double list, you'd be like, well, I'll just toss that aside. Yeah. Let me switch over to this other one and see if that gets me somewhere too. Mm-hmm. It's nice having that option.
Right. Yeah, and the only restriction really is that it has to be the same Grand Alliance, obviously, and it has to be fully painted to match. Your whole army has to be consistent, so you can't just bring two completely separate armies and use those. You know what I mean?
Oh, so, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, try to maintain a little bit of a theme at least.
You can't just
absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll take this Hurricanum and just slot it right on in the middle of my army.
Hey, Hurricanums are themey. They fit with any kind of order theme, right?
Sure.
Lizards, Hurricanum. Kurnoth Hunters, Hurricanum. Whatever you want.
The ubiquitous. Yeah.
Yeah. Seraphon Hurricanum? Oh,
sure.
No,
they're unplayable.
Literally unplayable.
Well, did you hear they won? Oh, no, they didn't. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Another thing that I think bears mentioning, I'm working with the Warhammer Weekly guys, so Vince and Tom.
Oh, no.
To work on a set of schemes. So we'll be running secondary objectives, and they're schemes. So, we're still ironing out the details here. But basically, these are secret objectives that each player has every game that they can try to achieve, separately from each other, and they don't tell each other. And basically, I'm going to start off, and we'll probably publish all these in the next week or so. The pack will be updated, but basically, you start with a large set of schemes. All these schemes will be pre-released in the pack beforehand, so hopefully soon. And so, say there'll probably be around 15 different schemes, and these schemes can be anything from like get a battle line unit off your opponent's long table edge, or use a battle line unit to kill a hero or something like that. So that there'll be 15 of these schemes. Before the tournament, these schemes will be sorted into 3 different decks, 3 decks of 5. And then each player will be given a deck before the beginning of the first game. And they can use each scheme no more than once. And you have to use all 5. So obviously use all 5 for the end. And then those will be your secondary objectives. And these schemes, what's really interesting about them is that they are, sometimes they can be kind of meta challenging lists or schemes, so they can challenge your list to do things that maybe it's not built to do. So it encourages kind of more well-rounded list building, and also you're not really competing against your opponent for this complete this game because it's secret. It's something that you're trying to do, kind of counter what your opponent's doing.
Yeah, I got one question. Are you going to use the curse?
Yeah. So you watched Vince's show?
Oh yeah, I love it. I thought that was such an amazing idea, and I just really wanted to copy it right then and there. I'm glad you're doing it first. So
actually, yes, I have done it. I've actually tested it in a tournament.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yes. So we did a kind of a little test with 1,000-point tournament. We had just a smaller scale tournament,
sure,
where we used schemes and used the same concept. We did 3 games that day, and so every player got 3 schemes they had to use. Nice. And one of them was curse, and I made sure that one was. I think almost every player got that one to try.
Nice.
And I kind of asked the group as a whole afterwards, what we think of the schemes, and it was overwhelmingly positive. Like there wasn't a person who didn't enjoy it, and especially the people who lost their games, they still had something to play for.
Sure.
And so it was a way of keeping them, because sometimes like by turn 3 or 4. A lot of games you kind of know the way it's going to go. Like you mathematically can't win, or it's a really fighting an uphill battle. If you have something to achieve, that your opponent's not actively trying to stop you from doing necessarily, it kind of can keep you in the game.
Oh yeah, and I think that they're a really good idea, and they do keep you into it. And just so that people out there know, the curse is a scheme where you start the game with one of your units cursed. You'll succeed in the scheme if you don't have the curse at the end of the game. The way you get rid of the curse is to have your enemy destroy that unit, and then their unit gets the curse. So you're actually running units around trying to get them killed, whereas the other guy, if he realizes it, he's trying not to kill the unit. It adds a lot. All those schemes add a lot.
Nice. Did somebody say Grot Fanatic?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or Wrathmonger,
know. Well, what happened to me was I used that in one of my games, and a unit of prosecutors killed my cursed unit. But I couldn't. So then, like the way the game played out, I couldn't kill those prosecutors because I didn't want the curse back on me. Yeah. The prosecutors were just running around the battlefield, like hitting me with javelins, like the whole game. And I just and my opponent was like, couldn't figure out why I wasn't fighting him, and I was just like keeping away until the game ended. He still had those units with the unit of prosecutors on the board. It was funny.
I love it. Yeah, so that's cool. Going to add a lot of fun, I think, to the tournament.
Yeah, it'll be cool. And just so we're clear, these will be released beforehand, so everyone will know what schemes they could possibly get, and then so you can to some degree plan a little, like you can know what you could possibly get, right. And each of these decks will be pre-sorted, and there will be kind of a scheme of every kind within each deck. So if there's a scheme that kind of skews more towards general or more towards heroes, you'll get one of those type of cards in each of your decks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah. So
yeah,
I'm pretty excited about it. It'll be pretty fun. And it's going to be cool working with Vince and Dom on this.
Yeah.
Nice. I had a question. So what kind of scoring are you going to be doing at the tournament? I'm assuming you're including painting and sports in the overall, or?
Yeah. So, okay. So not exactly. So we'll be doing major, minor, draw, minor loss, major loss, as usual. And so majors will be 15, minors will be 10, draw 7, and then a minor loss will be 5, major loss is 0 points. Schemes will count as much as a minor victory, so they're very important. So 10 points for a scheme, 10 points for minor victory. And then the way that we're incorporating soft scores in, so we're doing a 1 to 5 scale. And I know this is a very divisive subject. The 1 to 5 scale, generally sports scores in general are a really hot topic. What I've done is gone through, and this actually was listening to one of your past episodes where you go through like a checklist of things that your opponent did or did not do, and then you grade them kind of thusly. Yeah. So the checklist would be, did he show up on time and with all their necessary items to play? Did he or she adhere to the rules and handling the rules disputes or questions respectfully or agreeably? And most importantly, did your opponent conduct themselves in a manner that made the game an enjoyable experience? So there's nothing about lists, and we're being very clear that you're judging your opponent here. And then on a scale of 1 to 5, it's basically a 1 is I would never want to play this person again, and then a 5 would be I would love to play them regularly. Basically, the way we're incorporating that into the overall score is in order to win best overall, you have to have a 20. So you have to have an average of 4, which means you could still get a 1. You have to play like an angel for the rest of the tournament.
Or buy a lot of beer.
And we're still kind of playing with that. That number may go down to 18. So we're still kind of ironing out some things. We're going to run some practice tournaments before here locally. So we'll have those numbers will be really ironed out beforehand. Basically, we want the best overall player to be a player that was enjoyable to play against. That we thought this was an interesting way of judging that. As far as painting goes, so we'll have 3 nominations, so first, second, third. If you are second or third, you get points equal to a minor loss, so that's 5 points. And then if you win best painted, it'll be a draw, points equal to a draw, so 7 points.
Nice. Okay. I like it.
Yeah, we feel pretty strongly about incorporating soft scores in. I know it's something that it goes back and forth, but I think that it promotes the style of play that we want to promote in Age of Sigmar.
So, quick question: do you feel that adding these soft scores makes your event any less competitive than an event that doesn't have them?
Absolutely not. I don't think so. Okay. I'm a very competitive player. I like playing hard-nosed lists with an equally hard-nosed list, but I also like having a good time at the table, and I like painting my army well. You know, like I said earlier, this would be an event that I would want to attend. And I feel like if I kind of know what the armies look like that don't have any soft scores attached to them, and that's not something that I want to see on the table. I don't want to see your base coat and black bases, right? And I also don't want to have, your trolls that come out of the basement to play and don't have any social skills also, right? Like you want to have everyone to have a good time, and people that don't promote that good time, it's hard to really encourage that.
Right.
Oh, I hear you.
And to answer your question, I don't think that makes it any less competitive. I just came from Adepticon that has, had the largest Age of Sigmar tournament in the I think in our whole country, right?
Yes.
And there were some absolutely gorgeous armies, like beautiful armies that the banter on the tabletop was awesome. Like throughout, I played 11 games with Age of Sigmar and had very, very few issues. And over 11 games, you should expect to have at least a couple that are less than awesome. And I really didn't. It was flat out amazing. And that's the kind of community we want to keep, cycling through in all of our events.
Definitely. So what else is happening at NashCON that attendees might look?
Yeah, so basically what your ticket gets you is it gets you so the Age of Sigmar event, I don't even know if I said this. It's a June 3rd and 4th. I don't know if I even said that at the beginning. The convention runs June 2nd through the 4th. So Friday through Sunday. Your ticket gets you entrance to the whole convention, so you pay a one-time fee, and then that gets you access to the Age of Sigmar tournament and any other game system event that you can slot in as well. You can play those also, or just at open table gaming. It opens up basically the entire convention you get with just the one ticket purchase. There will be vendors. There will be food. Part of your ticket price goes to a meal voucher. So it's just making sure that money stays in the con. So that's kind of what the convention. It has a bunch of different game systems. There's some historicals, Malifaux, War Machine. In the past, there's been a 40K tournament. I know they're still working on that. I think the convention itself has been around for 20 some odd years, and to varying sizes, I believe. Of course, you have Nashville, which is a pretty fun city, just in general to visit. And so I think what I've been saying is, if you're not really interested in doing any gaming on a Friday, come in Thursday night, spend the day in Nashville, kind of do the touristy thing. There's lots of things to do in and around the city, and then come in and then game it up for Saturday, Sunday. Where the actual convention is south of Nashville, so it's in Franklin, which is a suburb of Nashville, about 20 minutes south, and the area is pretty nice. There's lots of things. There's a lot of places to eat, shop, and all that stuff as well. So it's in a good location.
Nice. Well, and you guys got both music country and western. So
yeah.
How did we not see that coming?
yeah.
Oh my god, I'm actually not a country music fan. Funny enough, I've lived here about 5 years. And
Oh boy.
it hasn't caught on yet. But there's actually a thriving music scene that's not country. But who would know, right?
Yeah, well. Nice.
If you are into country, there is a heck of a lot you can go listen to, though. Just go to Broadway and you'll find country for days.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Right on. Was there anything else you wanted to add or give a shout out about or plug?
Honestly, if anybody's interested in coming, feel free to contact me at Nash of Sigmar on Twitter. My email is honestly easier just to find it on the pack. If you go to tga.community and search NashCON, there's all my contact information. The pack's on there, event info, ticket info. You can go to nashcon.org, and that's the actual event website. And then you can go to tournament info and go to the Age of Sigmar tag, and you'll be able to go and see the pack there as well. If anybody has any questions at all, I'm more than happy to answer. I've been getting a lot of questions here recently, and I just had to do a bunch of FAQs today. So one thing I should mention, we are going to be using the new points for Death and Fire Slayers.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. I actually talked to Sean Clark at Adepticon. He was running the Rustville list.
Right.
And he came up to me after and he's like, "Are you going to be running the new points at NashCon?" And I was like, and I was kind of on the fence because Adepticon didn't use them. And he was like, "You should use the new points. Like, you should definitely use the new points." And I was like, "Yeah." And that honestly, that moment kind of sold me on it. And then I got an email from a Fire Slayers player the next day. He was asking, and I really want to see them on the table. So I'm I think it's the way forward for sure.
I think so. I think that's.
I know Kenny Lull was a little upset that the old points were used for Fire Slayers. Because he had been practicing for a while with the new ones, and then he had to go back to the old points. It's like, oh man, playing on the back foot again. So, yeah. So we'll be using that, and I did a bunch of FAQs that I didn't think were necessary today, but they are in there. So no Sylvaneth or Balewind shenanigans. Sylvaneth Wildwood shenanigans will happen, or Destiny Dice stuff. So good stuff. What do you mean?
Yeah, there was some weird stuff going on at Adepticon. There's a few things that Wildwoods. I can just read it. So you have to have the actual base of the Citadel wood. You don't have to have the exact Citadel wood, but you have to have an exact template of the base.
Sure.
And including the holes where the trees go. And then you have to have trees. And then models, you can remove the trees to measure, but you can't put models on those holes. This is all stuff that is pretty straightforward, but we had a guy at the tournament put Alariel in the middle of the Sylvaneth Wildwood.
Oh yeah. I've heard of people pulling some shenanigans with that stuff, but it's like,
well, yeah, she's standing on top of the trees.
Oh come on,
right?
Yeah.
Well,
right? Yeah.
I'm a Sylvaneth player here, and I'm saying no.
Oh wow. What you're saying you have a limit?
Yeah.
So what happened with the Balewind Vortex?
So actually, there's nothing. So there's no. They weren't actually allowed at Adepticon, so there weren't any Balewind shenanigans there. But there have been some questions that have popped up about Balewind, so I just kind of FAQ'd them. And this isn't anything that's official. This is kind of just I don't want to outlaw Balewinds, but I want them to be. I want them to be outrageous. Honestly, I think there are things you can do on Balewinds that make the game a little bit unfun. Like if you put a Balewind on an objective, then you can't. The person cannot score that objective anymore because they can't get within 6 inches of it. So basically, just FAQ that you can't put a Balewind on it, within the range of an objective. And if it becomes in range of the objective, it has to move to the nearest edge. And that's just to prevent players who can't actually harm a Balewind. So if you take Bloodbound or something, they're never taking a person off a Balewind, right? Yeah, so if you put a Balewind on their objective, you're basically just giving them the middle finger.
Corcoraths have a ranged attack. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Just like a Maw Crusher can scream really loudly.
Oh yeah, Iron Jaw, sure. Yeah, you're never getting anybody off a Balewind. You can foot them. And there's also a couple other things that came up. So there was a really weird ruling where, and this wasn't on Alex. I'm not blaming Alex, but there was a large model on top of a tower. I think it was Lord of Change, but it may have been a similar sized model on top of a tower. His opponent was trying to hit him, and they had a little rules dispute about whether he had the range to hit him from top of the tower, and they actually ruled he didn't have the range, so he couldn't actually hurt the guy on top of the tower. And so basically the ruling there is if you can't be reached by melee combat, if you're on top of a tall piece of scenery, like a tower, you use the garrison rule from the watchtower to determine melee distance. So you basically use the base of the scenery piece.
Fair enough.
And then Destiny dice, and this is how GW is playing it at the tournament, and so I'm just using their kind of their guidance here. This isn't an official ruling either, but Destiny dice cannot be used to determine mortal wounds. Yes. When you use Destiny dice to cast a spell, you have to use 2 dice as you normally would when you normally cast a spell instead of just 1.
So you can't use just 1 Destiny die and then say the other one. Yeah.
Right.
If you roll a 6 and a 1, you can't just bump that 1 to a 6.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't either, and I heard that's how the Games Workshop people were playing it, and so I'm just, again, I'm not sure if this is official, so I'm not saying that it is. That's just the rule. That's my personal house rule. So
it's all right. Skyfires don't cast spells, so
sure, right. But you can't use Destiny dice to do their mortal wounds.
Right.
And that's only fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're horrific enough as it is.
Yeah.
You should have seen mine last night. They were not horrifying.
Well, did you have 18 of them? I hear 18 do a really good job.
They do, and they're just not built. I only had 6 of them last night.
6 and a 750 point less, but yeah.
Yeah.
Details.
Shenanigans. I mean details.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's about it. I really appreciate you letting me come on here and talk about it. I think my goal is just to make, again, we need more kind of U.S. tournaments. We kind of look at the UK scene and see all of their the wealth of tournaments and events they have going on. And so I think it's just a matter of getting more people here in the U.S. We're more spread out, so it's different. We have they have a much higher population density there, and a density of like Games Workshop stores and all that stuff. But it's just a matter of us kind of running events and getting people to come, and honestly just letting people know. It's amazing how few people or how little people know about events. Like, I talk to people here locally don't even know Adepticon is a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, wow. And so, how can you expect people to show up to your tournament if they don't even know the biggest ones in the country?
Exactly. Yeah. It's just vocalizing that stuff.
I hope that the listeners of this podcast and maybe a couple other ones that I'm am also plugging on, don't get tired of hearing me, but it's honestly just to get the word out and hopefully, have a good turnout and have a good time.
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to wish you all the best of luck. And I know I'd love to be out there, but
yeah, it's a long way.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, and I'll put all the information that you gave us in the show notes. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and we really do appreciate you coming on to tell everybody about it. Like you said, we need a lot more regional tournaments. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
No problem,
Thanks.
man.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
Yep.
If you would like to get a hold of us, you can reach us at our email address, which is rollingbadpodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website at rollingbad.com. We have a Twitter account for the podcast, which is at rolling_bad. We also have a Facebook page. You can just search for Rolling Bad on Facebook. We each have an individual Twitter account. You can reach me at Elric Edge.
You can get me at Bill Castello, Castello.
And I'm at Tersoth.
You can also see our work, mostly James, at our Instagram page, Rolling Bad, all one word.
I'm a Wario. I'm gonna win.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Yeah, you got any more in there?
No, we're good.
You want another muffin?
Don't tempt me.
Why not?
I'll see if I can eat one bite.
You like those, huh?
Tasty.
Good. She'll be glad to hear that.
Bazinga!
See Chad's new clubhouse.
Yeah.
We had the whole house to ourselves.
We did. We had the whole place.
And we wrecked his bathroom.
We wrecked the bathroom. Did you know there was a downstairs bathroom?
I did not know that.
There was a downstairs bathroom. Yeah. We didn't have to go upstairs. So I wrecked the downstairs too.
Yeah, his upstairs one doesn't have an exhaust fan.
No exhaust fan. So the Rolling Bad Clubhouse has won.
Let's get a group of gamers together with a bathroom with no vent.
Oh my.
Recording.
I'm about to create a stain after looking at these Quadrant Overlords.
Thank you for the blooper.
That's my creation. Oh.
Put the bunny back in the box.
I would just like to say, as a veteran, that you freaking snowflake libtards. I'm sorry, folks. That was a Facebook thing, and I'm gonna put that in the bloopers. But yeah, that was just for fun.
Oh. Am I a jerk for laughing as soon as you said "as a veteran"?
No,
Okay.
because that was exactly what that was designed for.
Right.
That was the response that was desired. Yeah.
Well, excuse me, princess.
No, seriously though, I mean, I know we harp on it a lot, and we seem to be talking about it every episode.
It's
but
because we
don't
don't have any other content. The wells run dry.
I am taking that one out. Or not.
Oh my.
No, we did the interviews earlier though.
Oh. Oh no. Oh, I don't know what to do now. I'm kind of at a loss for words. You're right. We've run out of content. Okay, let's just put this dumpster fire to bed.
Finish him.